How did Dublin Airport get on this Christmas? Because the fear would have been the whole thing would have melted down, and we've problems in the UK, which is obviously where a lot of our flights go to, and it was all predicted to be chaos. But it seems to have been okay.
It was very, very good. There was a war of words from the run-up. Michael O'Leary, Ryanair, never slow to criticise Dublin Airport, said that there would be chaos. He expected the ramping up of numbers that happened around Christmas would cause problems for security queues. In fact, they didn't. Ryanair tweeted every morning saying that, there was only 13 of the 16 open and Dublin Airport were responding in kind. But the security queues never really went beyond 30 minutes. That would have been unacceptable, by the way, pre-COVID. 30 minutes was regarded as a nightmare. But by the time we've come through last summer and the big security queue problems, particularly end of March, end of May, everything worked, if not smoothly, certainly well within the rigours of what we expected. The disaster was caused by de-icing the week before Christmas. Listeners need no reminding of that. A big, spectacular international event where the EI-106, an Airbus 330 flying from JFK to Dublin, had to turn back on Christmas Eve. Bit of drama about that because the airport was closed Christmas Day, which meant a rescue flight wouldn't be back in time. There was also a couple of cancellations. For example, the JFK today outbound is cancelled, but there aren't, this time of the year you would expect 3 or 4 cancellations a day. They've gone through Christmas really, really well. Everybody reasonably happy. The bag situation is still troublesome. People are still waiting for bags that were lost months ago. But bit by bit, considering what was expected, Christmas worked okay for the airport.
Credit where credit is due. I have to say, when you look at the departure boards of all the Irish airports, there is only one airline that's doing the business at the moment, and it's Ryanair. And their figures are due out today, aren't they?
Yeah, figures will be out. They're, the end of they do the monthly figures. So what we're going to look at when they appear is what their passenger numbers for the year were. And it's not that difficult to estimate. There'll be about 158.7 million because we have the figures up to the end of November. Now, to put that, a bit of context and a bit of background in that, Jonathan, Ryanair and Lufthansa Group, which is not just Lufthansa, it's also Swiss and Brussels and Austrian, they were contending to be, the biggest airline in Europe. Ryanair are so far ahead now, they're going to be probably in passenger numbers as big as number 2 airline, the Lufthansa Group, and the number 3 airline, Turkish, put together, not far off it. Certainly about 30 million ahead of the Lufthansa Group. How did they do that? During COVID, they lost a lot of money. It has to be said. They lost 1.1 billion one year and 300 million the other. They kept their aircraft certified. They kept their license, the pilots' licenses, and they kept the cabin crew employed. What happened this summer was, as the big rush, post-COVID rush came, there was a queue of aircraft to be certified, pilots going back into simulators, and cabin crew had to be recruited. So while other airlines were cancelling flights, Ryanair actually grew. Their growth will be about 5% on 2019, which is unthinkable. There's not many airlines in the world. Southwest would probably be a contender for this as well. But there aren't many airlines in the world that had a better year in 2022 than they had in 2029. You've got to remember, we wrote off the first 3 months of the year because Omicron was stalking the universe, the planet, this time last year.
We are looking ahead to 2023, and there isn't that uncertainty. So when we were talking this time last year on, everything was up in the air again, literally.
Oh, very funny. Good pun.
There is a certain amount of confidence that we will have a relatively normal flying year. So what are the trends going to be? Will we all go back to weekend trips away, or just sticking to the summer break, 2 weeks in the sun, with the odd little bit of excitement for people going further afield?
Yeah, 2 weeks in the sun used to be the norm in our grandparents' and parents' time. You took off on a Saturday, you landed on a Saturday in a charter flight. Everyone did 2 weeks. What the post-90s, when Ryanair and Aer Lingus and all the other airlines moved into those sun routes, the average holiday time shortened. So we came down to about 5 days. I notice it's topped up again, not very much, but 6.5 days. What does that tell us? People are not doing the frequent trips. They're trying to concentrate on one. trip, they're still nervous. That's showing up in all the research. Very important research being done all the time by Tourism Ireland, inbound into Ireland, which is really important for 2023 as well, showing that there's about 30% of people still nervous about flying. It doesn't just vanish away, and the headlines about China and things like that are reviving old memories. So what we've seen is the average holiday lengthened a bit. The number of trips taken was back to about 84% of the levels that we had in 2019. Dublin Airport's numbers will be due out in the next few days. It was 32.9 million in 2019. It'll be about 28 million this year. Trends within that are also very interesting, Jonathan. Britain is way down. Britain is down about 13% in passenger numbers, whereas Europe is up about 6%. USA down about 8%. And what we're seeing is people going for the traditional bucket and spade, the Spain, the Portugal, the places we're comfortable with. We know a lot about them. A lot of us have holiday homes out there. And that's where the most of the return to travel was in 2022. I'd have expected a little bit more adventure in 2023. There is no indication of that. The slot take-up for 2023 looks much the same as summer 2022. So it's still being safe. It's still going to those sun destinations we're very familiar with.
Yeah, my mind will turn towards that now as this week wears on and the fear continues. Giving myself something to look forward to. I'm not alone in that. Eoghan Corry, travel expert, thank you very much.
Always a great pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you to the staff at Dublin Airport who took a lot of stick over the summer, who got everybody away for Christmas.